Hi, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Redhead Professor. And for this lesson, we're going to go over sales mix. And sales mix can be an interesting dilemma that companies face. Think of a grocery store for one. They have so much room in the store. They have to determine which products to sell, what price point to put those products on, and how many of each product to sell. So do you sell all generic Fruity Loops, or do you sell the name brand? How much shelf space do you give to each? So you need to determine what your sales mix is, and it's a complicated evaluation, but for the purpose of just getting into it, we're just going to compare two different products, and we're going to kind of play with selling different amounts or levels of each product and just kind of play with it a little bit so we can kind of dip our toe into what a sales mix looks like. But if you can think of a big box store selling all sorts of goods, you have to think how they come up with how much shelf space, how much floor space do they give to certain items, and how much space do they devote to shoes versus t-shirts, and how much of what product to sell. So it's not only if you're going to sell a product, how much room are you going to provide for that product? A lot of stuff goes into it. So we're going to look into this, and excuse me, let's pull up my Excel sheet. So for this one, we're just going to look at two products. We're going to look at product A and product B. Selling price of product A is $160. B is $100. Variable cost per unit is $180, and then 60 and 20 contribution margin per unit. So they're giving us that data so we can do the more complicated piece of it. So for this one, we're like, hey, we think product A is going to sell better. The price is higher. We want to sell more of it. So we're going to devote 75% of our sales mix to product A. So 75% of floor space, whatever, that we're going to give to this product, it's going to be 75%. In product B, it's only going to be 25%. So we need to figure out, we're going to go back to figuring out how much we need to break even. But in this case, we're looking at how much to break even, and we're looking at two different products, selling them both. So how much do we need to sell of two products, and how much of each product with different prices, different variable costs, different contribution margins, and mesh it all together and figure out what we can do. So we have hypothetically let's do 25% and 75% and see how it works. So we've got all of our information laid out, and we need to come up with a selling price for this sales mix, because the sales mix that this is our starting point. We're going to go with 75 and 25%. So the selling price of the sales mix is going to be $160 times 75%, because we're going to sell 75% is going to be a sales mix of product A. And then $100 is product B's selling price times 25%, because we're going to give 25% of the sales mix to product B. And then we're going to add them together. So 160 times 75%, 100 times 25%, and that's going to give us, we're going to add them together, and it's going to give us $145. So that's the selling price of our sales mix of 75% of product A, 25% of product B. Variable costs, we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to look at the variable costs, which are $100 and $80. So $100 times 75% and $80 for product B at 25%, because that's how much of the sales mix we're going to give to it. And then we're going to add them together, and we're going to get $95. So going to unit contribution margin, the unit contribution margin of this sales mix is $145 is the sale price. The variable cost of this sales mix is $95. So 145 minus 95 gives us $50 in a unit contribution of this sales mix of 75% product A, 25% product B. Our fixed costs are $180,000. So we need to sell, of these two units, fixed costs, $180,000, and our unit contribution margin is 50. So we need to sell a total of 3,600 units total. And we said we're going to sell 75% of product A and 25% of product B. So then we go back and we go 3,600, of which 75% is going to be product A, and 3,600 times product B. So we're going to sell 2,700 of product A, 900 of product B, totaling 3,600 units. That will be a $50 unit contribution price. We have to sell 3,600 units to get that $180,000 in our fixed costs covered. So it's a little more complicated, and you're working on a couple different hypotheticals, because just because you have 75% of your store devoted to product A and 25% devoted to product B does not necessarily mean that your sales will come out 75% of people buy product A and 25% will buy product B. So there's a lot more hypotheticals that can come into play, but for a planning purposes, you have to start somewhere. So this gives you a way to, you've got at least a starting point. So you go, okay, 75% to product A because it's a higher sales price, or for whatever reason you decide to sell 75% of product A and 25% to product B. That is a way to evaluate and say, okay, if I do the sales mix of that, I come up with a unit contribution margin of 50. So just for discussion purposes, let's say you decide, okay, we did 75-25. Let's do 80-20, because we think that product A is just going to be that much more of a popular product and the price point is higher. We make more unit contribution, or contribution margin per unit is higher at $60 versus $20 for product B. So we pull in and we do the exact same thing. We do. We find the selling price of the sales mix, which is our sales mix. Oops, doesn't look like I corrected that. Should be 80% of the selling price for product A and 20% for product B. Let's see if I did my formula right in there. Okay, formula's right there. So it comes up with $148. This is the selling price of the sales mix. And then the variable cost of the sales mix with an 80% for product A and an 80%, excuse me, let me just fix this while I'm doing it, and a $80 for product B. We have 80 times 20% gives us a variable cost of the sales mix, the sales mix of an 80-20 of $96. And then it gives us a contribution margin of 52, which is higher than when we had the 75-25. So again, it gives us just kind of some play. We can go, well, maybe we shouldn't even sell product B, or you have no idea. There's, like I said, there's a lot of different scenarios that come into play with the sales mix, but it's just a starting point for you to kind of play with the numbers and see what's going to be most profitable and what your plan is going to be for your shelf space.